Psychology, as a scientific discipline, has evolved through various schools of thought, each offering unique perspectives on the mind and behavior. These schools shaped the methods, questions, and priorities of psychologists across different periods. Below is an exploration of the major historical and modern schools of thought, from the birth of experimental psychology to contemporary biological and cognitive approaches. 1. Structuralism. Structuralism emerged in the late 19th century and is considered the first formal school of psychology. Wilhelm Wundt, often referred to as the father of experimental psychology, founded the first psychology laboratory in Leipzig, Germany, in 1879. Structuralism sought to analyze the structure of the conscious mind by breaking it down into its basic components, sensations, images, and feelings. Methodology. Introspection. A highly controlled form of self-observation in which trained individuals reported their inner experiences in response to stimuli. Focus. Understanding the structure and elements of conscious experience. Strengths. Established psychology as a scientific discipline distinct from philosophy, emphasized experimental methods and observation. Critiques and decline. Introspection was seen as subjective and unreliable. It was limited in its ability to explain complex mental processes and individual differences. Eventually gave way to more functional and objective approaches. 2. Functionalism. Functionalism developed as a reaction to structuralism in the late 19th century. Influenced by Darwin's theory of evolution, William James emphasized the functions of the mind, how mental processes help individuals adapt to their environment. Methodology. Less formal than structuralism, used naturalistic observation, introspection, and mental testing. Focus. The purpose of consciousness and how behavior helps people adapt to real-life situations. Strengths. Broadened the scope of psychology to include education, mental health, and child development, helped pave the way for applied psychology and influenced later schools such as behaviorism and educational psychology. Critiques and decline. Lacked a clear methodology and scientific rigor. Gradually absorbed into other schools, particularly behaviorism and applied psychology. Real-life application. Studying how memory supports academic performance or how emotions influence decision-making reflects a functionalist perspective. 3. Behaviorism. Emerging in the early 20th century, behaviorism rejected introspection and focused strictly on observable behavior. John Watson argued that psychology should be the study of measurable behavior, not mental states. B.F. Skinner later expanded this approach with his theories of operant conditioning. Methodology. Controlled experiments, particularly involving animals. Use of reinforcement and punishment to study behavior. Focus. How behavior is learned and modified through stimuli and consequences. Strengths. Emphasized objectivity, scientific method, and empirical evidence, contributed to behavioral therapies, education, and training. Critiques and decline. Ignored internal mental processes like thoughts and emotions, seen as too mechanistic and reductionist. Real-life application. Rewarding desired behavior in classrooms, positive reinforcement, or treating phobias through behavior modification are examples of behavioral principles in action. 4. Gestalt psychology. Gestalt psychology emerged in early 20th century Germany as a response to both structuralism and behaviorism. It proposed that the mind organizes sensory experiences into unified wholes, rather than simply processing individual elements. Methodology. Observation of perceptual experiences and problem-solving tasks. Use of visual illusions and cognitive experiments. Focus. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Focus on perception, problem-solving, and patterns of thought. Strengths. Laid the foundation for cognitive psychology and perception studies. Introduced key concepts like figure-ground organization, proximity, and similarity. Critiques and decline. Limited by its lack of experimental rigor. Many Gestalt principles were later absorbed into cognitive psychology. Real-life application. Understanding why we see patterns or group objects in a particular way, e.g., in logos, design, or visual perception. 5. Psychoanalysis. Developed in late 19th and early 20th century Vienna, Freud's psychoanalysis emphasized the role of the unconscious mind, childhood experiences, and internal conflicts in shaping personality and behavior. Methodology. Case studies, dream analysis, and free association. Exploration of transference and resistance in therapy. Focus. unconscious motivations, repressed memories, sexual and aggressive instincts, and emotional conflicts. Strengths. Influenced psychotherapy, literature, and the arts. First to recognize the importance of early childhood and emotional development. Critiques and decline. Lacked scientific testability and relied heavily on subjective interpretation. Many concepts, Oedipus complex, are considered outdated or culturally biased. Real-life application. Contemporary psychodynamic therapy, which helps clients explore unconscious influences on behavior, stems from Freudian ideas. 6. Humanistic psychology. In the 1950s, humanistic psychology arose in response to the determinism of behaviorism and the negativity of psychoanalysis. It emphasized the inherent goodness, free will, and personal growth of individuals. Methodology. Client-centered therapy, Rogers. Qualitative studies, self-report, and case studies. Focus. Personal meaning, self-actualization, self-concept, and the holistic nature of human experience. Strengths. Emphasized positive mental health, empathy, and authentic relationships, influential in counseling, education, and healthcare. Critiques and decline. Criticized for being unscientific and overly idealistic, lacked empirical validation and clear methodology. Real-life application. Therapeutic environments that are empathetic, non-judgmental, and person-centered reflect humanistic principles. 7. Cognitive psychology. Emerging in the 1960s as part of the cognitive revolution, cognitive psychology focused on how the mind processes information, including thinking, memory, perception, and problem-solving. Methodology. Experimental methods *, computer modeling, and cognitive tasks, often combined with neuroscience and linguistics. Focus. Mental processes such as attention, language, reasoning, and decision-making. Strengths. Highly scientific and testable. Strong influence in education, therapy, and artificial intelligence. Critiques. Sometimes accused of neglecting emotion and social context, may focus too much on abstract mental processes. Real-life application. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, strategies for improving memory, and user interface design all draw from cognitive psychology. 8. Biological psychology, biopsychology and neuroscience. Biopsychology examines the biological underpinnings of behavior and mental processes. It is rooted in neuroscience, genetics, and physiology. Methodology. Brain imaging *, lesion studies, and pharmacological experiments. Use of animal models and neuropsychological tests. Focus. How brain structures, chemicals, hormones, and genes influence behavior and cognition. Strengths. Offers objective, measurable data. Provides insights into mental disorders, brain injury, and drug effects. Critiques. May overlook the psychological, emotional, and social aspects of human experience. Risk of biological reductionism. Real-life application. Understanding the neurological basis of depression, using medications to treat mental illness, or studying brain plasticity in stroke recovery. Each school of thought in psychology has contributed vital insights into how we understand the mind and behavior. From Wundt's structural analysis of consciousness to the modern integration of cognitive and biological perspectives, these frameworks have shaped both scientific inquiry and clinical practice. While some schools have faded or merged into newer paradigms, their legacy endures in the diverse and dynamic field of psychology today. By understanding these foundational perspectives, we gain a deeper appreciation for the complexity of human behavior, and for the multiple ways psychology continues to help us grow, heal, and thrive.